Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Student Voice at Hull College. I'm Anton.
I'm Charlotte.
And today we have two special guests. We have Alice, obviously, and Dan.
Hello.
Why do I feel like my intro wasn't as exciting?
The amazing Alice.
We have Alice.
I feel like he
obviously.
actually pronounced the inverted commas on special, like some special guest.
Yeah.
You know?
I wasn't even trying to do
I
that.
got some weird vibes from that intro.
I suppose they're special.
Yeah.
I mean, we are all special, but, some just special.
And we have Alice,
Anyway.
obviously.
Passive-aggressive intros aside,
Yeah.
thank you for having me again.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here again.
It is just turning into the roast of Alice at this point.
It wasn't, but now I feel like it is. Like, I feel targeted again. But no, okay. But
Yeah.
today,
Today we are talking about some of our past experiences having job interviews and everything related with jobs in general. So, Alice, you said you have an amazing story to tell. So, tell us this amazing story.
again, I feel like
That was
I feel
very...
like you're laughing at me, but I don't know. Okay, well, so I have like one sort of story for when I applied for a job. It was at Gourmet Burger Kitchen, and sort of it was like just a standard interview. We were like sat on across a table from each other, and it was just asking loads of questions, going through my CV and stuff. And then right at the end, the manager he asked me this really random question and was like, if you were to go on a date with someone, where would you take them? And I think he was wanting me to say, obviously I'd take them here. This is like fantastic food. But I just, if I'm honest, I was just honest with my response. And the answer is like, I wouldn't take them here. And I said I'd go for a steak somewhere.
Greg's.
Yeah, Greg's on cinema. I was like, but yeah, the answer, yeah, I don't know, I was quite surprised. It was like a bit of like an awkward moment. And then I still got the job though, but
Wow.
I was only there for a couple of months.
I was going to ask you got the job. But,
Yeah, no, I did get the job. It
Looks like honesty usually works here.
Yeah.
Well, if anything, I mean, I never had a job interview. Like the closest thing I had to a job interview is like, when you're applying to like a job and they got like those employer questions where they ask you like, how long do you want to work? Like 12 hours a week, like blah, blah, blah. So basically, I was applying to Burger King, and literally the first question was, what's your favorite burger? I opened a new Google tab, typed in what burgers do they have at Burger Kings, and literally chose like the one that's like the least disgusting one, and I picked it. I think it was like a crispy. Like basically, it was like it had crispy chicken, American crispy bacon, like some American cheese. I mean, even the loaf itself wasn't like a burger; it was like a bit longer. But essentially,
Just say Whopper, Anton.
I mean, actually, funny you mentioned that. I mean, I did also see the Whopper, and then that internet meme just popped into my head. Whopper, Junior Whoppers, double, triple cheese. Yeah, but it's just, yeah. I mean, it was kind of like embarrassing. Like, imagine if that was actually something that happened to me, like in a live interview, and that was the first question, like, what's your favorite burger from Burger King? Like, I would literally have nothing to say. Like, the only thing I ate at Burger King's was chips, chicken nuggets, and ketchup. That's it.
So, isn't it funny that both of those places wanted you to sort of like compliment them as a business?
That's actually the strange part. Like,
but like in a real direct sort of sycophancy of like, where would you take them on a date? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Some on the shore.
Why are you asking me that?
It's so weird.
Yeah, that's also, like exactly. That's actually a good point. Like, why do they ask like these? I mean, they're not necessarily personal questions. They're more of like say how good we are. Just say how good we are. Like,
I mean, the normal kind of version of that is the why do you want to work here? And you have to sort of pretend it's like a massively unique experience and opportunity. But
Yeah.
Charlotte, have you had any job interviews that you've liked or not? Or
Well, I've had, not many actually. I've done like 3 interviews, 2 of which I ended up with a job. And then one of them was for an apprenticeship for Hull College actually. But then it was kind of weird because it wasn't my first one, but it was like first proper one.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept asking me questions, and I said, obviously I was answering like normal. And so they asked me if I wanted to ask them anything, and being me, I said no. I said, I don't really. You should really ask questions, but I said no, and then they just kind of like stared at me.
Yeah, that's the
like,
wrong answer. Basically, they, like.
What sort of question should you ask when they ask you?
Well, just like ask about the hours and pay and stuff like that, just to fill it.
Well, that's a funny thing because I once asked what was the pay at a job interview, and they got really like as if it was like a massive taboo. So we don't discuss that at interview is what they told me. And the reason why that was is that when I then got the job next week, they basically said, right, you got the job. It starts Saturday. Here's the pay, and it was 2002. So it was like it's £4.10 an hour. Stuck it up.
Maybe that's why they didn't want to discuss that.
However, like just to put it in context, that was a camera shop, and then like the other place I'd worked at the same time was a pub, and that was more like I think it was 485, something like that. So obviously, like that's 20 years ago, but it was rubbish. And the bar was the bar was the better job. But like they have a lot of places have very fixed ideas as to what's the right thing for you to ask. So sometimes
that's also something I find weird. Like, it's just some questions, like, when you ask them, they just give you, like, these strange responses. Like, for example, like, you ever got these questions where they say, where do you see yourself in, like, 5 years? Like, hopefully employed.
I see myself working here and climbing up the ladder. Yeah. That's what
So, and again, a lot of those sorts of questions, they're kind of, like, geared at the... Do you have a cultural fit with the place? I'm doing air quotes, listeners. But there are, the answer that you think you should ask is what you should say is what Alice just said there, sort of something along the lines of, oh, well, I'd like to see this as a stepping stone in this particular place. Now, normally that's fine. If, however, you're saying, I think this is a stepping stone to something else that is clearly not in that business, then suddenly it's well, they're not going to be around and stuff. So you do have to be quite careful with some of those sort of questions that sound very open, much like the where do you take them on a dinner. It's in that same sort of area of like those sorts of things. So
I obviously must have just interviewed really well for the rest of that interview for them to just be like, do you know what, let her go somewhere else for a date. Maybe
they're just testing to see how many people will actually go for this place, of course, because maybe that's the last thing I want to hear, because they know that's the joke. Because that bar I did work at in York in 2002, on their interview sheet, and they just wrote out a sheet just for a record. They, you just got the job, but they were sort of saying, other than here, which is obviously the greatest job opportunity in the world, what would you like to do? And that was literally on the questions. It was something along those lines. So like they sort of. They got
like
it.
Reverse psychology.
Well, they got it because they know that the reason why you're working in a bar is to not begin going out and just to bring some cash in, in general, so, or at least that was the group of people they expect to get the job there, really. But it's funny, but some of the really if you even Google standard interview questions, you'll definitely get them. So interview questions you get all the time are things like, how would others see you, and all that sort of things. And it's trying to get some sort of reflection, and what's your greatest weakness. And the answer everyone used to tell you for that was, I'm a perfectionist. But that's such a cliche. It's clearly not true as well.
I do everything perfectly.
Yeah. So I just take the job too seriously. All this sort of stuff. So
just so passionate.
Giving an answer that's actually authentic, but what you think they're looking for is a challenge. So, I sort of sometimes give up on the what are they looking for and go, you know what? I view an interview as a two-way process, and if they don't like me, I'm cool with that. And so I haven't been too successful in my last few interviews. As a result, like I was saying just off mic, there was an interview I had a while ago, and they said, how would your line manager view you? And I said, well, I think they view me as a team player that was always go out for somebody else if they needed it. But I think they probably say I was quite frustrating to work with as well, And that was
why were you so honest?
I just thought it was just popped into my head, a bit like you with the burger thing. I thought I can't say anything else now. I'm just stuck with that. I'm just going to have to go with it. I'm just going to go. And you know what?
And it was like an out of body experience. You're like, no, don't say that. And you're just like, well, it's happening.
I just thought, you want an honest answer. You want a reflexive answer. Look, I appreciate I can be quite difficult to work with because, sometimes things I need to, it doesn't always get done the first time, etc., etc. And I think that's probably true of everybody. But, I've got that down to fine art. But, I just told them that. And strange enough, I didn't get the job. But I was okay with that, But, there you go. So, but like, there's lots of sort of questions like that which I think are really hard to gauge as to, and like often if it's sort of like, if you find on the internet the correct answer, that's a cliched answer, but they're also cliched questions. So maybe that's what they deserve. But
and different companies and different managers will want different answers as well. So it can't always be like the same answer.
Yeah. So in that respect, I suppose it's easy to say if you're in a position of employment to say, just go with what you want, how you want to represent yourself, and view it as a sort of a two-way thing. But if you're right, this job I have to land this job, then you'll have a slightly different perspective, won't you? But I think it's just, I think authenticity in that is an important point because that should come across a little bit. But I mean, there you go. I mean, that was a job a while ago, but. Like in education, everyone always asks a safeguarding question, but that's obviously a very industry-specific kind of thing, if you like. If you're looking at retail jobs, they wouldn't have that as a standard question, I would probably imagine. But often it's things like situations, like, so here's a situation, how would you deal with it? And just making sure you have the understanding of the right process. So, if there was a shoplifter so if there's a shoplifter, you've seen someone lift, put something in their coat.
not the shop itself,
a bunch of chicken nuggets.
Shoplifting is not lifting a shop and moving it. Shoplifting is nicking stuff out.
Yeah, like a bunch of chicken nuggets and like three Whoppers they've just put in the bags.
I've done that before. I've caught one. I was serving them at the till, and they had like this bag, and I was quite new to it actually. And
where were you working?
I was volunteering actually in the charity shop. Yeah, but so they was buying this bag, and when I picked the bag up to like scan it, I thought there's definitely
heavy.
No, it wasn't heavy. It was just like the feel of it, like there was something inside it, and I thought she's definitely put something in that. And then I said, I made like an excuse because I didn't want to straight up go right. You're taking stuff. So I made like I said, we'll just check because sometimes we stuff the bags with like paper bags. Just make sure we take all those out, and then. My colleague opened it up, and in there was a few more bags that she'd stuffed in there to try and nick. We did not see her in that shop for quite a few months after that.
But she came back.
She did come back eventually when I stopped working there.
Yeah.
But I think the manager's just quite happy that I'd caught that one.
But that was a good way of dealing with that because you didn't, because for all those bags happened to be in that bag accidentally and all the rest of it. So it's like not going for all the straight. You've nicked it sort of thing, and just going through the process is probably the best way of going around it.
It's like conflict management.
Didn't want to confront her because that could like escalate that situation.
But so basically, don't say stop. You violated the law.
Yeah. So I was trying to work around that, and then
and effectively, like a standard retail shop would probably have a security guard, or or they would tend to sort of leave that to security and things. But like. I worked in a clothes shop again around the similar time to the other jobs, and
really?
at the this was New Look. This was right.
Before I was thinking, I was like, I wonder where, like which shop. Like that's what I want to know.
Before, I'm sure you really wanted to, but it was before it had menswear, but there was on the front rows, like people just come in and just lift the whole rail and just like pull the rail. So we ended up having to have the hooks. Or the hangers.
Just try and walk off of the.
Yeah, just lift because if you like have all the hangers go in the right direction, you just pull it and lift the whole lot. So like people would do that and just run. It's got security tags on and that, but I'm sure they got their ways and means. But they had the hangers. We had to put the hangers on opposed way, so they couldn't just do that.
Yeah, it would take them longer then, wouldn't it?
They can't just lift it and stuff. But
wow.
Yeah. So
Did you ever have to run after anyone with
No, so I mean, like security would deal with that kind of thing, but normally it's sort of like security guards would radio other security guards and probably try to prevent the thing happening in the first place. And if they do nick stuff, it can be quite a challenge as to knowing what to do, really. But so that's the sort of industry specific things are ones that you can prepare for in that respect, I reckon. But there you go. I don't know if I've got any other interview disasters or whatever, but I mean, I don't think that was a disaster. It was a negotiation.
No, it was a negotiation.
I was quite lucky actually, because my last interview, which got me my job I'm in now, it wasn't an interview, so to speak. It was more of, we know that you can like do the job. We want you to do the job, but this is what it is. Do you still want it? And like it took me through like all the like induction and stuff like that. And then they was like, right, well, you start then. So I was quite lucky with that.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Anton, do you have any?
No. I'm still trying to find a part-time job. I don't have lots to say.
So you asked like what questions should you ask at the end, and
Yeah.
you know, I always said sometimes the pay can be a bit of a taboo because often they sort of like give you the pay offer afterwards, and that's like a separate negotiation. So questions you should ask are things like, okay, what are the key challenges, or what's the big difficulties in this company, and how are you overcoming them, or whatever it might, something along those lines, but industry specific. You could ask like, if it is a part-time job, say I know this was like a 8-hour contract or a 0-hour contract, but how many hours typically, or if you don't want to answer it as bluntly as that, when's your busiest times? You know, like or that sort of thing. And so I would just ask sort of like very specific things about that sort of stuff, because you know they would ask you things like, you know, name a time that was challenging, how you dealt with it. I mean, I was on an interview panel and we asked someone something along those lines, and he went, no, I can't think of a time that's been challenging. And I was like, going to rephrase that until you give me an option, give me an answer.
Yeah.
Took a few goes, but you know, like that, you know, like that sort of like, you can't just, shrugging the shoulder is not ever going to be the answer, even at this sort of have you got any questions bit.
I would get really worried. Like, what if your head just goes blank? Also, say if I was in an interview job for something industry related, education wise, and a question like that came up where they wanted me to provide an example. Like, what sort of what sort of questions would they?
So yeah, having some examples in your head ready and sort of be able to morph them to the questions are really important.
More
sort
like,
of thing.
is it more like, is that where the safeguarding would usually come up?
So in education, or at least, you know, my experience of it is that there will be a separate safeguarding question at all times. So, you know, what is safeguarding? What's the correct procedure? Or something like, here's a case, here's a scenario, how would you deal with it? That sort of thing. But if it's a case of like, you know, tell me a time that was challenging and how you dealt with it. They want a specific example of, here is a problem, here's why it was difficult and important, and here's the resolution. And it's that kind of 3-prong sort of bit. So, you know, if it's in teaching, it'd be like, you know, some students were particularly challenging, or, you know, I had to learn a new subject very short, in a very sort of brief amount of time. Here's how I went about it. Here's how that improved, that kind of thing. So have like those sorts of examples ready. And, you know, if you're applying for something that you haven't had experience in, it's fine for those examples to come from something else. That's why there's things like work experience, or indeed, you know, any sort of college project. So, you know, there's no reason why you can't say, you know, tell me a time that something was challenging, or you had to learn something new and adapt quickly. Well, you know, this podcast would be an option for yourselves for that sort of thing. There's no reason why you couldn't do that, you know, and that shows a sort of a willingness to try something very much out of your depth. And that's what they're looking for. Is, you know, is this someone who can react positively to challenges? And you just need to give an example of that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be from the industry that you're applying to if you've not worked in that, because, well, they know you haven't worked in that. Mm-hmm. So, well, I'm an expert around, but here we are.
Good.
The interview is such a sort of a fraught process, because really it rewards people who can, on the spur of the moment, tell you something that sounds convincing, whether it's true or not. Now, I don't think that's necessarily the right person to have.
So,
you know.
So it's essentially like an honest deception kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. Because, like, I think of, like, interviews that have gone really well are ones where I've sort of prepared a lot more, and I've even prepared for the things that I don't like them asking. So, you know, that question I gave you the answer to, I wasn't surprised they gave me that answer, because I'd had that question, because I've had that question before, but I just hate the question, so sort of avoid thinking about it. So I think you have to sort of like have a plan for them, but they always want some sort of example, rather than you saying, I know this is the right thing to say. So any kind of example.
Because ChatGPT told me what to say for
Well,
job interview questions.
That, to be fair, is probably a decent. Well, without going on a tangent. You can use that for stuff like that. If you ask a question, be like, can you give me some responses of how you could respond to a question like that? You could put in the questions and see what is
you could sort of
I'll go back and forth.
recommend, here's an interview question, here's my answer, what do you think? And it will,
do you have any feedback for this?
And it will tell you what it thinks is the right answer, or it will do autocorrect very quickly for you and tell you that thing. But it's not a bad way of going about it. You can put in job descriptions and say what would be a good cover letter for that, or what should be the key strengths. You can say, without putting in any personal data, if you have like a CV, and say, do you think assess this CV against this job description? And you can get a bit of a feel of whether you think it works, because it does analyze the sentences and for comparisons using natural language processing. But anyway, so it's you say that, but it's not a bad ask. It's not a bad shot, really. I dare say you'll find a lot of that sort of stuff off some business or jobs website anyway. But it's not a bad shout, really.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You've been listening to the Student Voice at Hull College. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And we'll see you all on the next episode. Goodbye.